minutes late. That is because we've been trying to connect to the internet, and apparently some of the servers, there's some problems with the cam system. That's all I can tell you. So we have a little bit of trouble with that, and so we've just decided to go forward. I think we should be all right without internet connection.
George?
Yes.
Ask everybody to turn off their, it could be that we jammed the system because so many phones are back to the internet right now.
Okay, well,
Everybody turn their device off.
Yeah. Would everybody please turn their phones off? I asked that anyway, but Bill feels that might be the problem with the internet, and that we're jamming the system. I would ask you to turn the phone off, not as much as jamming the system, as much as interfering with the speaker, but that's another issue. So, okay, I welcome you all to the meeting today, and it's wonderful to see such a crowd. I assume everyone had their donuts and their coffee, and they're ready to get down to business. Our agenda is pretty much similar to what we've always done, nothing dramatic there. And our finances are very solid. We're going to talk in a few minutes about asking for our budget appropriation for next year, which will eat into that balance. But we're very happy that we're where we're at financially. We also have 1,425 members. As you all know, some of you, we had like 1,700 in June when we have our renewals on July 1, and we purge those who didn't renew. We always drop about 200, 250. Those are satisfied customers. Those are people who came in, had their computer fixed, it's working, and until it stops working, we won't see them again. Okay. Again, I'd like to remind everybody that we have to limit computer repairs to our members' computers. Some of you, it's a hit or miss on what day, how crowded it gets, but we've been really overwhelmed in the lab lately. We have limited facilities in the lab, and we're using them as best we can to service everyone, but things have been getting backed up, and we really have to definitely enforce that issue of only servicing computers for members. Having said that, I'd also like, go back one, Bill. I'd also like to ask if anyone has suggestions for meeting subjects, class subjects, or articles for the newsletter, to please send them to Frank or I or to Jim Nelson, and we'd welcome any suggestions you might have along those lines. Now we go to the important things. As you know, each year we present a budget in August, and basically that's a budget of our expenditures for approval. Our bylaws require approval of our expenditures by the membership. We do this basically on a total spending authorization, and then we go forward from there. This is the administration and some of the normal things we have. You'll notice that the coffee and donuts are a big item. Actually, coffee, other than hardware, coffee and donuts, I think, are our biggest item, to be honest with you. And we really would appreciate the contributions to Grafton in relation to the coffee and donuts. And as I've said once before, everybody putting in $1 or $2, 5s, 10s, and 20s are welcome as well. But at any rate, these are very consistent numbers with what we spent last year for these items. Our big item, of course, is equipment. Some of this equipment, particularly in this area, is really a carryover from last year. You approved that equipment last year. We follow the philosophy of, if we haven't spent something by the end of the fiscal year, we ought to ask for reauthorization on it. We don't carry anything over. And we deferred some of that equipment because equipment technology was changing, and we wanted to make sure we went with what was the best equipment for what we wanted to do, and waited until some of that technology is firming up. And it is in the process right now. Most of this is relatively straightforward. Replacing one machine. This is a normal replacement. We replace equipment every 4 years, and a Mac computer is due for replacement. This is a new item. As you notice, we have the screen outside of the lab. What we want to do is upgrade that screen so that we have touch on it, and touch would have it being able to go to, for example, if you wanted to see the classes, you could hit the button for class and bring up all the classes, that type of thing, and it would give us a lot more expansion of our ability to communicate with not only our members, but anyone who happens to be wandering around the halls of the lodge. Our total expenditures at this time would be $10,600 for equipment. And in addition, we have software requirements. Our deep freeze is somewhat old, does not work well on 8 machines. So we want to, instead of upgrading it piecemeal, we just decided we want to have consistent software on all these machines. So we want to upgrade deep freeze on all the machines. I think most of you are familiar with deep freeze. It allows us to basically lock all of the information in our drives for booting purposes. So if you come in there and you monkey around and you put some very bad viruses or whatever you put on the machine, when we reboot that machine, that's all gone. The only thing that's left is what's in deep freeze, and it's software that we've used to protect our equipment from anything that can happen. It's also a benefit for all of you in the sense that if you have a weird email or something that you want to test or you want to open and you're not sure about it, come in, do it on our machine, not on your machine. If it works, that's great. If it doesn't work, you have not lost anything. You just reboot the machine and it's gone. So you can't hurt those machines. That's the reason we use that product. We also have to upgrade Quicken, and we need another version of Access and Publisher. So those would be the software items that we would be planning to buy next year. So in total, this comes to $18,000. Again, about $4,000 of that really was approved last year and is a carryover. I would ask for a motion to authorize implementing this spending plan and approve it.
Motion made.
Barry Marcus, and seconded. Okay,
got it.
Okay. Can I have a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I believe that carries. Okay.
George, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On this deep freeze, why doesn't everybody have that on their machines at home?
Well, there's on the site, there's a good and a bad to everything in life. And the good is that, the question was, why, if deep freeze is so good, why doesn't everybody put it on their machine at home? The good and the bad, the good is that you can't damage the machine. The bad is that if you save anything like all those pictures you just scanned, and you turn the machine off, well, guess what? You can rescan them because they're gone, okay? In other words, whatever you put on that machine, once you reboot it, it's gone. Now, we do have, that's why we say when you scan pictures or slides or whatever, bring a thumb drive, save them off to your thumb drive, take them home. If you save them to the C drive on any of those machines, which would be your normal save routine, those will be gone as soon as you reboot the machine. Now, we do have a protected area called the members area, and you can open an account on the members area, which is not protected. It's protected for as far as the data, but anyone in the club can access it. Okay, it's not protected as far as your personal information or something. But people may want to put, they don't have a thumb drive, they scan a bunch of pictures, they can throw them into that members area and open an account in that members area, put it, and then come back later on and transfer it to a thumb drive at some point in time. That's possible too. But as far as any data you do, you make a spreadsheet, you write a letter, whatever you do on your computer, if it's on deep freeze, as soon as you reboot it, that information is gone. Including, by the way, if you added programs. In other words, if you added programs to your computer while it's on deep freeze, that's why we say you can download programs to your heart's content in the lab. And if they're really terrible programs, it really doesn't matter. I mean, the only problem with downloading programs, if it's a program that requires you to reboot to activate the program, you're into a losing cycle, okay? But nonetheless, that's the reason for that. Yes. Okay. Okay, we talked about that, and the newsletter, again, any articles you have, or and by the way, articles can mean you don't have to write the article necessarily. If you come across an article on PC Magazine online or something like that, that's a topic you think would be of interest, just copy it, paste it in an email, send it to Jim, and with the reference, and he'll pick up on that, and we'll be able to write an article from that and get it into the newsletter. Again, on the Apple products, the Apple group is not meeting. Yes, sir.
There's been a big change lately, and I think the group or person who updated the Computer Club newsletter deserves a big applause because they've done a terrific job.
Well, that's Bob Markham and Jim Nelson. So you can, Bob is right here, Jim is somewhere. Now, the newsletter has been very well received. The Apple products, we're continuing to have someone in the lab on Tuesday nights to work with people on Apple product problems. That program has worked out real well. As we've announced before, the Apple group itself will not meet again until September. But if you do have an Apple issue, iPad issue, whatever, if you come in on Tuesday night, there are people there that can help you with those issues. Okay. Next board of directors meeting is August 20th. There's an executive directors meet and greet on the 27th, and there's a town hall meeting August 11th in this room. On August 5th is National Night Out. It's kind of a program that's been going on for a number of years. In Sun City, it's looked at as Hot Dog Night. The Heartland Bank will be providing hot dogs at the ballpark. There will be a game, softball game after that between the fire department and the fire district and the police department. So that should be interesting. The other thing with National Night Out, turn your lights on your home for that evening. That's kind of been asked for, and it's been done for some time. So it's up to you to participate. But again, hot dogs at 5 o'clock. I guess that's the important part. Okay, some other community matters. The board voted last Wednesday to rescind the $10 fee for kitchen services over at the various lodges and the room rentals for charter clubs, neighborhood groups, what have you. They are not offering refunds. If you've already paid, well, you've already paid. It'll start in 2015 with reservations for 2015. The ballots of the Board of Directors will be distributed in the latter part of September, and they will be due by October 15th. We're using outside service again, just as we did last year. And I really not only encourage every household to vote, but if you have neighbors, encourage your neighbors to vote. And if those neighbors would encourage other neighbors to vote, we might get the totals up to some form of respectability. Because our turnout generally has been very low on the voting. This is an important thing in terms of how your community is managed. It's a great opportunity, the only opportunity, really, in many respects, for you to truly get your feelings across as to what you want done by the association management. Biographies of all of the candidates are or will be out in front of the CAM desk. If they're not there now, they will be there shortly, and they're also online. Okay. Lastly, brought up at the meeting, we were great for rumors around here, and the rumor was that Nico's, the old Nico's, is going to be taken over by Jameson's, and this Jameson's is going to close. There's a good and a bad to that. Okay. The good news is, yes, Nico's is going to be taken over by Jameson's. It will be open as an Italian restaurant. I've asked Dimitri when, and he throws up his hands. So he's now telling me sometime before Christmas. That's the last I heard. There is absolutely no truth to the rumor that Jameson, as Jameson, is pulling out of the lodge. So you can go down and have a sandwich, dinner, whatever you want, and you know that they're going to be there as far as at least as far as the length of the contract that we have. So, okay. Two community matters on this. I hate to keep bringing this up, but the bridge is still closed. Okay. But also, I point out this: Algonquin and Church Street. There's some sewer work being done, and they said it could take as long as August 8th. So you're asked to avoid that intersection if you can as well. And with that, I would like to turn the meeting over to Dan Rey. Dan Rey is a Microsoft systems engineer. We've seen Dan Rey here before. He's put on excellent presentations. He's going to talk to you about Windows 7 and Windows 8.1. So with that, I will turn that over to Dan.
Go ahead and get a projection set up here. Okay, good morning. So this is a session on Windows 7 versus Windows 8.1. And how many folks know what the most current version of Windows 8.1 is? Bad is the wrong answer. Sir, what's your most current version of Windows 8.1? So there was a Windows 8.1 that came out last fall. There was actually a spring update to Windows 8.1. So what's an easy way to tell if you have Windows 8 or Windows 8.1? Does anybody know how to identify that visually? Quickly? Yeah, so if you go to your start screen, one way is if your start screen and your desktop look the same. Notice that I've got a background here, and it's the same background here. That was an introduction of Windows 8.1. If you have a mouse and keyboard, whether you have touch or not, if you have a down arrow, that's another indication that you have Windows 8.1. Because we introduced a new view besides the tiles, which is all of the applications you have on your computer. So similar to kind of searching through your computer, I can see all of the computer programs that are installed here, including desktop apps, modern apps, other types of things. The other thing we tweaked with Windows 8.1, and this is how you can tell if you have Windows 8.1 or if you have Windows 8.1 Spring Update, which came out in April. If on your start screen In the upper right-hand corner, you have a power button, which is the circle with the line in it, kind of half in it, and a search item. You are running the most recent version of Windows 8.1, which was commonly referred to as Windows 8.1 Spring Update. And this alone is the reason I'm in love with Windows 8.1. How intuitive was it in the past to start or to click start to shut down your computer? I used to always get that question, how do you shut down your computer when we introduced the start screen? Click on start and then choose shutdown. That's not intuitive. This, from my perspective, is very intuitive. If this is where my computer goes when I turn it on, I have restart, I have sleep, I have the different options right there, along with the applications that I care about and the people I care about, etc. The other big change we made, just visually, and then I'm going to get into some of the under the covers or under the hoods changes, is you'll notice on my taskbar, one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got about Windows 8 was that as soon as you jumped into one of those full screen applications, how did I close that application? Or how did I get back to my desktop? How did I use other things on my computer? So you'll notice down here I have a music icon on my taskbar. I'm actually going to make sure I can move that to the top so you can see it. So at the very top of my screen there's a music that looks like headphones icon. When I click on that, it launches the new modern UI for music. And it starts scanning through my computer to find music, so it's got my artists, and it can connect online to music and other things. But if I'm on a keyboard and mouse, and I go to the top of the screen, I have a red X to close that. I have a minimize, which puts me back on my desktop, and I've moved my taskbar to the top, so music is up there. But I can also, in the right-hand side, split this to the left or the right, minimize, and then potentially run two programs side by side. So I could run music along with my desktop applications or other types of things on a non-touch screen. The other reason I really like Windows 8.1 is the whole idea of this operating system was to make things faster and more intuitive. So how many folks have pictures, movies, videos, things that you manage on your device? Is that a common scenario for many of you? And again, we're having an internet issue, but I shouldn't have, hopefully, an issue with a wireless hard drive that I have here. So I'm going to see if I can map to it. And I can't. See if I can get to it here. Pardon me while I do something really geeky. 72, 25, 0, 1. There we go. Okay. So I'm connected wirelessly to a wireless hard drive. And I've got some videos on that wireless hard drive. Does anybody remember Dave Allen? This is one of my favorite shows from WTTW in Chicago, growing up as a kid. My dad used to come home and he'd tell stories that I had listened to, jokes that I'd heard on Dave Allen the night before on Monday at dinner. And he'd tell us the joke and I'd interrupt him with a punchline. It's warning me about security. Another thing about 8.1, a lot of security types of dialog boxes. This is telling me that my security settings, accessing this wireless hard drive, that it has no idea what that hard drive is, may or may not be a good thing. If this is a wireless hard drive you trust, like Dan Rey's wireless hard drive, you're good. This is, hey, copy a bunch of stuff illegally from me, music or something else. There may or may not be other stuff within this that you're copying. So a lot of dialog boxes, and again, you have to kind of understand the dialog boxes to understand if something's a good or a bad. This is the new file copy dialog box. I get information immediately about the speed of my transfer, how many files I'm copying. I'm copying 12 files. I also get a pause capability. Have you ever been copying stuff? And while you're copying stuff, you realize, oh, I really want to print something or I want to check email. And kind of the rest of your system just seems kind of sluggish. So if this is a task that I want to complete because I want to get the music from that, or sorry, the videos from that wireless hard drive to my tablet, but I need to do something else, I can pause that transfer, go do something else, and then once, as long as connectivity or whatever I was transferring is still available, I can just resume that transfer midstream. I don't have to kick it off or cancel it and then kick it off again. This also gives you multiple streams. So if I'm copying videos there, but maybe pictures are more of a priority for me, because I want to use a picture in my presentation or something else. So my system's going to slow down a little bit because it's wireless and it's transferring files over wireless, and I'm trying to transfer other files over wireless. These aren't going to be very large. But you'll see for a second it gives me a dialog box with both transfers, and I could pause my video transfer to speed up at the bottom my pictures transfer so that it gets all of the bandwidth or all of the capabilities, and then again reprioritize, and I see all of those transfers instead of just everything's running slow on my system. If you have USB 3 hardware, so some of the Windows 8.1 tips or under the covers things are going to be for new equipment, whether it's touch enabled or whether it's just a traditional desktop or laptop type of purchase. If you have USB 3, which is a new USB or bus capability within computers, those transfers are night and day from the standpoint of the speed that I'm getting out of this. You would see a transfer that's happening maybe 10 to 15 times faster. I see a couple, I'm getting a couple indications that people might not know what I'm referring to. So I'm going to see if I can find a cable here. You know, I thought I had everything out that I wanted to use and demo. This is the right cable. Okay, so that copy is taking forever. But it's happening wirelessly and it's happening slowly. So I'm going to plug in a traditional, same kind of hard drive, just a wired connection to my computer. And I'm going to take way more content, gigabytes of content, and I'm going to copy those over to my computer as well. No security dialog box because it's directly connected, it's not a network connection. Look at that transfer rate. I'm getting about 1 megabyte per second. I'm getting over 100 megabytes of video transfer from USB 3. Same computer, if you have the same computer running Windows 7 and you do that transfer, you see about a half of the speed just by upgrading from Windows 7 to Windows 8.1. If that was 50, let's say, or 40, you'd either see 80 or potentially 100 megabytes per second just transferring the same files. Same computer, just an upgrade to Windows 8.1. Because we've improved these kind of throughput and these kind of mechanisms within computers running Windows 8.1. So again, if this was slowing something down, I could pause it to speed this up. I can pause them both if they're, I don't know what's causing my issue. And I could resume independently those two streams of copies. So that's some of the kind of behind the scenes and some of the geeky stuff in Windows 8.1 that might be of interest. Some other things behind the scenes are Windows 8.1 is an operating system that really embraces just being wireless and being able to connect wirelessly. So for instance, under Devices and Project, you can see that I'm duplicating my display and that I'm connected to the projector. kill this copy here. We'll let the other one complete because it's wireless. But again, I'm projecting completely wireless and without any wires to my device. So Windows 8.1 set up as a standard a way to wirelessly project a device without having to have the wire and the cable and the converter and everything else. I'm going to get into PowerPoint here. And I'm going to set up my slideshow for primary monitor. So how many times have you seen this slide that's too small and maybe I should have done something with, I should have split up these tips. Well, in the new version of PowerPoint with a touch device, I can just pinch and I can zoom in on the slide without having to rebuild the slide. The picture's too small, I didn't realize it wasn't going to be gigantic. How big is this screen up here? 150 inches? 200, it's a really big screen. But again, if something on my slide's too small, touch device, wireless presenting, if I'm finding myself here, and I'd rather be here so I can see what I'm doing, it's very easy for me to reposition myself, move around the room, hand my device to somebody else. So here's the list of things that I'm going to talk about with Windows 8.1. Longer battery life. By design, Windows 8.1 hardware and just the operating system itself was designed to understand how to put a device into a power state that will use less battery life. How much less? Great question. Some of these things are going to be based on your hardware. So I've not done the test of a Windows 7 laptop or tablet running Windows 7 battery life, and then Windows 8, same laptop or device running Windows 8. What I have done is just personal tests like a Surface Pro 3. So if you haven't seen the Surface Pro 2 or Surface Pro 3, the device I'm projecting from is a Surface Pro 2, and it has an extra battery within the keyboard. It's called a power cover, and the power cover gives me additional battery life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Question?
Yeah, when I'm on Facebook with my regular computer, I get 3 hours on Facebook on my wireless. How much time will I get on Facebook on this?
Great question. So the question is about Facebook and 3 hours wireless, looking at updates or just doing
Right,
stuff
yeah.
on, okay, and Wi-Fi connected?
Wi-Fi connected.
Okay. So the other thing I'm going to do here is just see if I can disconnect quickly and reconnect on the Surface Pro 3 to give you a sense for battery life differences. There, we're disconnected. So the question about battery life, as soon as this comes up, this Surface Pro 3, thinner, lighter, bigger screen than the Surface Pro 2, was designed for extreme battery life. This gets me through an entire day. That didn't work. I'm connected to a different network. I wonder if that's the issue. So I'm going to take a look real quick. I have 92% of this battery remaining. This device would get me through easily a day. With Facebook and wireless, maybe 6 hours, twice the time, maybe 3 times the time. See if I can connect back here, yeah. So it must be something about the wireless I'm on this one. So if you have interest, you want me to pass around the Surface Pro 3? Would that be of interest? Just to take a look at the hardware? Can I start up here? So let me show you battery life on this device.
Just a 3?
Yes, that's the Surface Pro 3 that I'm passing around. You'll notice a couple things. It's extremely light. The keyboard can come off. It's a tight cover, so you just pull on it. It's a magnetic connection. But the Surface Pro 3 also, instead of just having 2 points on the kickstand to click, actually just you can put it anywhere between kind of an upright table, you know, or slate, down to 150 degrees. So you can position it basically any position you would want just by moving the kickstand open further. So feel free to kind of check out that hardware either during this or later. So you'll notice here that I have 2 batteries. The reason I have a secondary battery, the 39% remaining, is the battery 2 is coming from my power cover or the keyboard. If I disconnect that and look at that again, I've got 97% remaining. The question about Facebook and time, what are you doing with power settings? Are you doing anything with your power settings?
No.
Okay. So the other thing on this device, notice I have it crank everything up. Don't turn the screen off, don't reserve batteries, don't preserve battery life. Just give me raw power and leave the screen on. If I went to either balanced, which would be a better kind of half and half, turning the screen off when it's not in use, maybe when I'm doing something else, not on Facebook, or if I went into the power saver mode, I would just increase that amount dramatically from a standpoint of what high performance would do.
Yeah.
Can't share that.
Well, it's Dan?
That's right.
Yeah, he
It's
will
in camera
leave
mode.
it.
Normal Windows things don't.
He's already got 3 of them at home.
You can't give
So
him a
locked
toy.
in?
He
Yeah, I
doesn't
know.
share one.
Oh, I know what you did. If you swipe up before you unlock the device, it puts you in a camera mode.
Oh, I swiped down.
Maybe it's swiped down. Let me check. So if you're locked on a Windows 8 device, 8.1 device, yeah, it's swiped down.
Oh,
and you
okay.
swipe down, you actually turn on a camera, so that you could almost make it into like a photo frame, or I'm not sure why we
You
did
can't
that.
get out.
But you get out by hitting the unlock. There's an unlock in the corner.
Oh.
So I'll pass this around here.
Oh, I didn't get to play with it.
What's okay?
Did you guys want to? Okay, I just want to see how heavy was supposed to.
So better performance. We talked about some of the USB improvements. There's other capabilities just designed, especially with hardware and newer hardware, to give you better performance. More secure than Windows 7. So I heard you guys talking about deep freeze and some other things, and why deep freeze is a really bad idea on a home computer. It's a really bad idea on a home computer. Windows 8.1 was designed, the hardware or the computers you would buy with Windows 8.1 to be more secure by default. So similar to how an iPad or a Chromebook or something else that only boots that operating system, that doesn't know how to boot something else, means that you're starting up an iPad, and what operating system are you in? Are you in Windows? Are you in Mac OS X?
No.
You're in iOS, right? You're in iOS version 6 or 7 or 8's coming out, right? So you're in one of those versions, and you know that's your starting point. And that's a big selling point, right? Is I don't have to worry about, is there a virus in the background? Is the browser going to pop up all sorts of stuff? Well, Windows 8.1 was designed with those same kinds of capabilities. The feedback we got from some people is, oh, this is Microsoft trying to lock you in. It's not Microsoft trying to lock you into something. It's Microsoft saying, the only way to say safely and reliably, you are in Windows 8.1 without malware, viruses, all sorts of other stuff on your computer as a starting point, is to make sure that we know when we start a computer, that's all that's starting up. So Windows 8.1 devices, and again, this isn't just on an upgrade, this would be on a new desktop, laptop, with or without touch, tablet device. is designed to boot and to put malware detection and antivirus capabilities in memory quicker, and to try to keep you safe from yourself or from bad things on the internet. The cars have all sorts of safety features today, right? I just got a brand new car. It has it's not a governor, but I can set like, hey, if I go over 75 miles an hour in my car, tell me I'm going over 75 miles an hour. Is there anything stopping me from going over 75 miles if it's not a governor? No, it's just a little, right, state troopers or police. Yeah, my dad's the mayor of DeKalb, so I choose to speed around my hometown where I have some connection. Yes, that last name might ring a bell. But there's nothing stopping me from going 80 or 90 or speeding. There's just some safety things associated with maybe telling me when I'm speeding or doing other things in my car. The idea of security is we're helping you as a starting point, but we can't help you if you don't choose to, kind of think about things or not do things. My dad called me the other day and he said, I got an email that Comcast was going to turn off our service. Maybe that's what happened here. Did you guys get that email this morning? Comcast was going to turn off our service in a day. I clicked on the email and they started asking me all sorts of personal questions, and they misspelled maiden name, and that's what alerted my dad to maybe I shouldn't be providing my mother's maiden name and my address and my credit card and everything else. But it's stuff like that again, if you're just thinking, hey, I don't want my internet or my cable turned off, and you start filling something out, or somebody calls you, we had a couple of those questions about, hey, Microsoft calls you, hey, I just met somebody from Microsoft, thank you for helping me, I'm having issues connecting to the internet. Well, all I need is your credit card and your expiration and your password and this and that. Not a good idea to provide. So that can either be on your computer, it can be social engineering, somebody calling you, somebody having a conversation asking those questions. But besides the security features, probably the number one requested feature in Windows 8.1. See if I can get out of here. Helps if I connect back my keyboard. Get out of slideshow here. There we go. It's from your taskbar under navigation. This one. Let's see if I can zoom in here. When I sign in or close all apps, go to the desktop instead of start. So for all that confusion caused by this and these desktop apps and other things, you can now start your computer with this checkbox from the start. It's moving my mouse around on it. From the start screen instead of from the desktop instead of the start screen. This one right here, show the apps view automatically when I go to start. Let's apply those two settings. Let's zoom out. Now, if this is what I became just enthralled with, because it shows me new under applications that are new, shows me install under applications that install. It gives me some different choices, like the most used programs on my computer. And I'd rather start here than from those tiles that I don't really leverage because I'm not using photos from a touch screen and I'm not using the full screen music application, I'm using whatever else I want. This is available as the start when you click the Windows key or when you go back to the start. And then you swipe down or you use the arrows. Where's the up arrows in the lower left-hand corner? To go back here, you're going to start from your desktop. And those settings are right under navigation, on the taskbar and navigation properties. Has this happened to anybody? I know it's happened to somebody in the front row here. Where you have a desktop computer. Let's pretend for a moment, I'll try to pretend I don't have a touch screen. And this is the browser that opens. Has anybody seen this wonderful experience on a desktop with keyboard and mouse?
Yep.
Super useful, right? Where are my tabs? Where's my navigation? Why is it at the bottom? If that is frustrating you, there is a setting under Internet Explorer, under this wrench or gear, thank you. And it's under Programs. Right here. Open Internet Explorer tiles on the desktop. What that does is it sets up your computer to know that you prefer using keyboard and mouse. And that link that took me to the weird browser that I wasn't familiar with without my tools and add-ins and other things now takes me here. So just those couple of things would be ways to personalize Windows 8.1 and make it more your own and make it more familiar, potentially, if you're coming from Windows 7. Any other questions? Yes, up here.
What's the difference between 8.1 and 8.1 Pro?
Excellent question. I'm going to pass out books to good questions. Are you guys together? Or?
No, it's okay.
Okay. You had a good question earlier. So the question was, what's the difference between Windows 8.1 and Windows 8.1 Pro? Does anybody know the difference? Do I have any helpers in the audience? Windows 8.1 is a starting point for getting into Windows 8.1 or the operating system. So the version I have on my computer, I believe, is Pro. So if you go into Control Panel System on your computer at home, it's either going to say Windows 8.1 or Windows 8.1 Windows 8.1 Pro, and it might say get another version or do something else. Windows 8.1 is a starting point for features like the desktop and the start screen and the security features, etc. Windows 8.1 Pro allows you to do things like encrypt the file system on the device, join a domain if you work or have a domain that you need to join, remote desktop, so I can set up remote settings, and I can set this on my home network or somewhere so I can access this computer remotely. You can't do that with Windows 8.1. With Windows 8.1, you need Windows 8.1 Pro. Great question. Any other questions? Over here in the red.
Why, when it said Windows Edition, why did it not say Spring Edition in 2014? It said 2014.
Excellent question. Why did it just say Windows 8.1 and not Windows 8.1 Spring Edition? Because I'm not on marketing at Microsoft and they didn't ask my feedback on it. I have no idea. I think the idea was they don't want to consider it a major release or a major change. So it's something you just have to see if you've been updating your computer. But that would say, in this dialog box, it would either say Windows 8 or Windows 8.1 as an indication. There's actually an August update coming that's even less, there's less changes that are going to be apparent to people. So the computer should still say Windows 8.1 or Windows 8.1 Pro.
And is antivirus built in, or is that something you have to buy separately?
Antivirus is built in. There's still people selling antivirus solutions. You guys may have an opinion from the computer club on what to use. There's free antivirus you can still load, but there is some of that protection built into Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. I'm going to take a question towards the back, the yellow back here.
Okay, I was wondering if you can make additions to autocorrect on 8.1.
Great question. The question was, Autocorrect on 8.1 within the operating system?
Yeah. Because, I find with different keyboards, I accidentally hit, depending on which keyboard I'm using, I accidentally hit keys that I shouldn't be hitting as I'm on my way up to another.
Wow. Okay, that's a good one. I do not know if you can. Do you guys know if you can change the autocorrect in the operating system?
Dan, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was autocorrect in the operating system, and you were saying you use different keyboards sometimes.
Keyboards, the keys are closer together, and so therefore I accidentally hit a key as I'm
Right.
to get another one.
Try my keyboard. How accurate do you think you would be if this is your keyboard? Does anybody recognize this? Horrible, horrible idea. I could go back in time and talk to Dan Rey 3 years ago. Don't do it! This is the Dvorak keyboard layout, and it was designed to speed up your typing. I've never been a real fast touch typist. But if you remember back to QWERTY, why is QWERTY slower? So the little hammers on typewriters don't all jam up, or once we got to the ball, it wasn't as much of an issue about the hammers jamming up. But I am not aware of anywhere within the operating system to actually add to autocorrect. In applications like Word, there would be somewhere to add to.
On the tablets that's being passed around, I tried the keyboard, and the keyboard did not type on the screen what was being typed on the keyboard.
And that is probably because it's my device. And it was typing exactly what I would type on the keyboard, but the only keys that are in the same place are A and M. So unless you're spelling mama or AM or something with numbers, ignore the fact that your keyboard on that Surface Pro 3 is acting really squirrely. Great question. Up here in the Hawaiian shirt.
I have two questions. The first one is it ever possible that you give...
Two questions. This saves me some.
I'll make them fast.
Some riggedy.
Is it ever possible that you would be able to buy a data plan for a Microsoft tablet like you can other devices? That's my first question. My second question is, all of the blogs are already talking about Windows 9, and would you speak to that, or?
Yes.
It would be nice if you would.
Excellent. So the first piece was about a data plan from Microsoft, or included.
Yeah, like an Apple tablet or another tablet. Could you buy a data plan for Microsoft?
Excellent question. So the Surface that is running Surface RT, which looks and feels and pretty much behaves like Windows 8.1. Did your Surface have the data plan? Does it have the AT&T network card in it? You know?
No, I
Okay.
couldn't do it.
So there is a version of that tablet that you have that has the ability to add a data plan from AT&T, and I believe there might be a Verizon version. The issue we have with a lot of that is the way I'm getting to the internet is through my phone. So if I'm already able to do that, it may or may not be all that interesting to have to build in and pay extra for the radio within my device, and that might affect battery life, other things. The question about Windows 9, or I'll just say the next version of Windows, because again, they're not going to ask me if they should name it something different, or
Threshold.
Threshold is the beta name. And this is being recorded, so that's good, because I'm not supposed to acknowledge that either. I don't know what Threshold, what's that? You don't send this back to corporate, do you?
No.
Then I'm all good. Let me see if I can find this document here. It's on my desktop, I think. It's on my desktop in the other accounts, that's why. Pardon my jumping around here. Terry Meyerson showed these publicly, so I do not get fired for showing these. But the next version of Windows will look and feel and behave in many ways the same way that Windows does today. However, modern applications, like the mail application or the music application, besides just having a close, will actually run in Windows. So one of the design goals for the next version that you'll be able to upgrade devices to is for keyboard and mouse to be able to do something like this. How many people have seen this video or this discussion from Terry Myerson? Even better than that, this should get some applause.
Yes.
The return of the start menu as opposed to screen. Come on, guys. This is what everybody's been asking about. And this is coming back as well. So in what form? This is kind of this is just a PowerPoint, an animated PowerPoint, so it's not even, test code or preview code. But this is the idea of the next version of Windows. Question, is that Tony in the back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to update the sections, the April or August update they put, does that happen automatically, or do you have to do like you would normal service pack?
Great question. So the question is about the spring update and the August update?
The April update,
right?
You said there was one probably coming in August. Do these happen automatically, or do you manually update it like you did the old service pack?
Right, great question. So the spring update, if you have your computer turned on to receive automatic updates, I believe that was pushed out as an automatic install update. We are being told, and again, second day in August, right? First or second day in August. The August update is likely not to be a required update, but it will be a recommended update. Whether that changes, 3 months or 6 months from now. It's a lot of fixes for like OEMs, and it's not going to be as visual as the search box, the power button, those types of things in this August update. So probably the next major thing would be when we reach that next version of Windows.
Do those updates come automatically?
They should. They should. If you have your computer turned on for automatic updates, if they don't, you go into Control Panel. I think this is another Windows 8.1 thing. If you go down to the right-hand corner, Settings, change PC settings, update and recovery. This is the modern way of checking for updates and seeing if anything's waiting for you. There is a way to do that in Control Panel, and there's a link to Control Panel at the bottom left here. And Windows Update, this is the old version, if you will, of Windows Update. And this would let me go online and see if any of those updates are there. And this is also where you can go to view update history on the left to see if you have those updates. So if I go here, this lists all the updates to antivirus, software removal, malicious software removal tools, security updates, anything else that's been put on my computer.
Can you still get the Windows update from Internet Explorer?
Shut off your computer.
I think it's under Help or Options.
Oh, I don't think so. I think that's for download. The question was about getting the update from Internet Explorer. I think that's if you want to download it to install it on a bunch of.
Usually, there was a thing you could go right to Windows
Right.
Update screen.
Right. That we've deprecated that.
Can you talk about the importance for people that still have Windows 8 to update it to 8.1?
Great question. So the question was about if you're running Windows 8. We talked about a couple things that are visual or that might be nice to have about running Windows 8.1. But one of the reasons you want to be on the latest version from a Microsoft product perspective is as we reach the 5-year mark. So Windows 8 has been out for, 2.5 years?
Okay.
2 years, 2.5 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. When we approach that 5-year mark, we start stipulating what the support version of the operating system is. And typically, we'll say either a service pack or a last major milestone. is a place that you need to be supported going forward. Windows 8.1 as an update was free. So it's not even a cost thing for your computers. It's just an install thing. Make sure that you're running Windows 8.1. How many folks are running Windows 8? Just show of hands. So about maybe a third or a fourth. How many folks are running 8.1? Are most of those same people? Put up 2 hands if you're running Windows 8 and you upgraded to Windows 8.1. There's only a couple of those. So there's a lot of people running Windows 8. I wouldn't say a lot. There's about a fourth of the audience running Windows 8. And maybe we add maybe a third of the audience running either Windows 8 or 8.1. If you're running Windows 8, it's not imperative at this point because we're about 2.5 years into it. But you need to think about that time when you're going to get to Windows 8.1 because of support going forward. It's a good idea too.
Wasn't there some importance so that you would not get some of the new security updates if you didn't update within a certain period?
I would have to look in that. The question was, are there security updates or something else that you wouldn't be getting if you're not on Windows 8.1? I don't think we've hit those dates yet, but we will hit those dates where, you know, the minimum that we're expecting is Windows 8.1. So the other thing I would advise you is if you have something major coming up, you know, the hot dog night out, and you're in charge of listing out how many hot dogs and who's playing the softball game and some other things on August 5th, probably not a good time to go ahead and night before decide, hey, I'm going to pull that trigger. Dan Rey said update to Windows 8.1. I wouldn't do it under any kind of, I need to do this because somebody told me and it's Saturday morning. I would consider, you know, the timing of that and maybe, you know, what you do if it took longer or you had a question about it or something else pops up. So think about, are you guys available to assist with that kind of upgrade? Windows 8 to 8.1? Question, George?
And then 8.1 has to be downloaded to a specific machine. In the past, for example, service packs, various things in the lab, we've downloaded those to a CD or DVD so that we can upgrade various people's machines without a lot of tying up the internet service for us, okay? Is there any way that we can do that with 8.1 updates? Because we haven't been able to successfully do that.
Right.
If there's something...
The question was about how do you get Windows 8.1? Do you have to get it individually from each computer? Or is there an easy way to get something to update to Windows 8.1? The idea with the actual updates was to make the updates stream down to devices so that you don't have to do that, you know, that other legwork. There are some ways to actually do the upgrade without, you know, going back to the internet as the source. I would advise using the internet. Personally, just, you know, either have the person download it or you know, stagger those. But we can talk offline about trying to get the update or trying to get code where you could update, you know, from like a CD or a master image or something. Great question. In the back here with the microphone.
Hi. Can you run all Windows 7 applications under Windows 8 or 8.1?
Great question. So the question was around just what can you run on Windows 8 or 8.1? And I'd say high 80%, maybe 90% of the applications you can run on Windows 7 should run on Windows 8.1 or the latest version, a more recent version. The 10%, 15, 20% that won't run are typically applications that are either so low level that they're connected to Windows 7 in some way or a previous version, or the application developer didn't know how to count from 7 to 8. So a typical issue was the application install says you're not on Windows 7, and I don't know what comes after Windows 7. Windows 7 was 6.1 in the registry, and Windows 8 is actually, I think, 6.3 in the registry. So behind the scenes, we tried to help the developers that can't count to 7 by saying, well, just lie and tell them it's 6.3 for Windows 8.1. You know, so it's not even Windows 8 from a developer or behind the scenes. It's 6.3 because we figured this certainly will solve all those problems. People that can't count past 6 will, just have a 6 version that's provided to them. Even this didn't solve all those problems. So Windows 8 and 8.1 will try to, hey, did this install work? And it'll walk you through a wizard that says, let's just lie and tell it it's Windows 7 or previous version. And sometimes that will solve a problem with that, 20 to 15% or whatever that set of software is that you can't install. Up here?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you have an important document on a flash drive.
Who has the microphone? Okay, in the back, sorry.
When you have an important document on a flash drive, can you transfer that on somebody else's computer who has Windows 8.1?
Great question. So you've got a flash drive, it's from a previous operating system. Do you mind going over here? I think there was a question over here. Can you transfer? You can transfer between Mac computers, Windows computers, different versions of Windows computers. Windows 8 allows you to encrypt that thumb drive. If you encrypt the thumb drive, you have to have Windows 7 or higher to automatically decrypt the hard drive or put in the passcode. But if you don't encrypt the USB device, you can put it in, I could put in this hard drive in Windows 7 and it'd be fine. Great question. In the white here, and then we'll get to the question in the back.
Yeah, I'm new to this, so.
Okay.
I did a lot of programs like Constant Guard from Comcast and that, and Norton, and I called the techs from Xfinity, and they say they're not compatible with Microsoft. And Microsoft, I call them, and they'll say it's a Comcast problem. So I don't know.
So the question is, Comcast says it's Microsoft's problem, and Microsoft says it's Comcast's problem.
Right.
And the answer probably is it's not even Comcast's problem. If Comcast is giving you Norton, which is a semantic company, it's probably Symantec's decision about whether you have the version that's compatible. In many of those situations, I'd recommend maybe going back to your computer club folks and get their recommendation. My recommendation is I don't like to load a lot of that extra stuff that Comcast gives me. You shouldn't have to load any of that to get on the internet.
Right. But on the Constant Guard, that's where I do my banking. On my PC, I had it.
Is it a web application?
Yeah.
Is it a browser?
Yeah.
Then there's nothing to install. You should just be able to go to the website. And that should work. If that doesn't work, there's some tricks to that as well. The trick that I saw in yours was you were sitting in that modern browser, like the touch browser. Go to the desktop browser, that wrench, and view in desktop. Does everybody know about this one? Let's change this back real quick. So we talked about this handy little don't bring up the touch browser. I think that's okay. I don't know what I just did. Yes, okay. Windows wants to change something. Yeah, go ahead, I'm presenting. So, you're sitting in this browser, and this isn't the browser you want. If you click on this wrench thing down here, view in desktop, it takes you back to that other page. The reason it's probably not going to open is because I'm on my wireless hard drive, and I haven't told my wireless hard drive how to get to the internet. But theoretically, it should. Okay, yeah, this is my wireless hard drive, though. This isn't an internet page. But that view in desktop should just take you from the modern, the different browser, to this version that looks and kind of behaves the right way.
How much longer does Windows 7 have?
Good question.
Great question. So the question about Windows 7 and life cycle, if Windows 8 has been out for about 2 years, Windows 7 is probably approaching 4 to 5 years since it was actually introduced. And typically what Microsoft does is we support an operating system for 5 years, mainstream. We support it for another 5 years with security and hotfixes and keeping it safe and secure. So that's 10 years, so release another 5 to 6 years out. And typically anytime we release a service pack or like a major milestone, we support that major milestone as the version that we want you to be running. So I believe with Windows 7 there was a Service Pack 1. We want you to be on that Service Pack 1 for the remainder. We don't want to hear that you haven't updated to Service Pack 1. You haven't put any of the virus definitions or, sorry, antivirus definitions. I guess you don't want virus definitions. That might be what I said yes to. Good
when
question.
you finish with all the Windows 8 updates, won't you be at Windows 7?
What's that? Good point. Once we have that new, the old start screen back, or start menu back. Question here?
Under Windows 8.1, do you have the DVD deck so that you can run DVDs that are produced by professional
Great question.
movies?
So here's another one of those caveats. There's things to think through when you're upgrading to Windows 8. With Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, Microsoft did not license the DVD playback or codec information generally for every device. Why would we not license that software for DVD playback on a device like Surface? Does anybody know? Because if Microsoft pays for that for every single device running Windows 8, this device is an all-in-one. It's battery powered, so it's got about a 2-hour battery, and it's running Windows 8.1. This device, it's an 8-inch Dell tablet running Windows 8.1. All of these devices, if we licensed, would be devices we have to pay for that DVD codec. We have to pay back, even though none of these have DVD drives. So typically what happens now is if you upgrade, as part of the upgrade, you should be upgrading your DVD playback software that was included with Windows 7, whether that was the Windows 7 version. Typically it's like WinDVD or some other piece of software. Or if you get an external DVD drive, which is what I need for this device to play back or to even read a DVD disc, that purchase a lot of times comes with the software. It's a great question. It does not include the DVD playback codecs or that capability natively, but the main reason of that was because so many of the devices that we're selling and seeing don't even have DVDs within them that we need playback software for.
Thank you.
Great point or question. Can I turn things back over to you?
Dan,
Thanks.
thank you very much for the great presentation.
You guys, I have pens up here, and I have discounts to the Schaumburg Microsoft store in Wickfield Mall. If you're interested, there's friends and family discount cards as well as pens. And I've got a couple of those books remaining, so if you have interest. Do you guys have a library or something? You can
Yes, we do.
Why don't we do that? We'll put the remaining books. It's Windows 8 on tablets into the library, and then you guys would have access to them. Thanks again.
Before we all leave, I do have one thing I have to admit. I made a mistake. I neglected to make one announcement. The Huntley radio program is trying to raise money to get on the air, and they're having a special program ran from last night to tonight. But at any time you can make a contribution, and they would very much welcome your support. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again next month.